Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to Mystical Awakenings, right here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, where we can all connect and stay connected. I love that. Let's make contact. So we don't want to waste any time. We're gonna get right on with introducing
our
tonight's guest.
Yes. Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and co-workers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network MUFON, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 30 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. Several of his books have been on Amazon UFOs bestsellers list. His articles have appeared in numerous magazines, including Fate, Atlantis Rising, MUFON UFO Journal, Nexus, Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, Phenomena Magazine, Mysteries Magazine, Ufologists, and others. His writing has been translated into several different languages, including German, French, Portuguese, Russian, and Icelandic. He has appeared on numerous radio and television programs, including Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell, God rest his soul, Coast to Coast, and also the History Channel's Deep Sea UFOs and UFO Hunters. His research has been presented in the LA Times, the LA Daily News, the Dallas Morning News, and other newspapers. He has taught classes in various paranormal subjects and lectures across the United States. Welcome, Mr. Preston Dennett.
Yay! Hi.
Hi.
How
Hi, Deb.
Wow.
First, before we get started, I just want to say, I really commend you for all the research you have done. And, it's a tremendous amount of volume of work that you've done. And I don't think you've missed anything. I think you've covered, I think you keep your eye on everything, which is cool. And I just want to thank you for putting that information out there for everybody to see.
Hey, that is very nice of you to say. Yep. I do love doing this research. It's been, 35 years now.
Wow.
So, yeah, most of my life, really.
Yeah, that takes true passion and dedication to do what you have done. How can you live life? I mean, you're so busy. You put out so many books and so many articles, and I know that you do the research, and you have a life.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't.
Do you sleep?
I do. I sleep really well, actually, because I work pretty hard.
Okay.
And mind you, I worked full time for most of, just until recently, past year or two.
Right.
So this was.
That's incredible. I mean, I know like in 1986, you've had something change your life and you really got into this big time. But I want to go back, to your childhood and maybe your younger days. Did something happen to you that told you to take this path, or was it predetermined before you got here, or what do you think happened? Can you share some stories when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit it was. I feel like we all do have a path in life. And when you finally find your passion, your excitement, you follow it, the red carpet is rolled out, doors open, and when you're doing what you're meant to do.
Right.
And from a very young age, I did feel like I was going to be a writer. I was going to be telling amazing stories. I didn't know what they were, but I always kind of felt that, and my whole family knew it. I had 5 brothers and sisters, a large family.
Wow.
And I told them, all of them, I'm going to be a writer. They're like, how do you know this? I'm like, I just know it.
No, I don't want to get real personal, but how did they take this road and path you took?
Well, in some ways, good. I mean, mostly. I mean, we're a very close family, loving and supporting no matter what, really.
Right.
Good.
That's good.
I remember my oldest brother, Jamie, was like, how do you know what you're going to do? You're lucky. And I'm like, well, I just do. But when it turned out to be UFOs, no, they weren't all thrilled. By then, my mom had passed away, so I never really got to go there with her.
Yeah.
My dad was very unhappy about it.
Oh, wow.
my older brother Jamie thought I was crazy, as did my I had 3 older brothers. Stephen also thought I had lost my mind. My sisters were okay with it. They said they both kind of always believed in UFOs. I sure didn't. I mean, I really didn't. Mark, my other older brother, had seen a UFO.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
And I kind of blame him being partly responsible for driving me into this.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say that, but I'm going to anyway because it's true. He saw one. Yeah.
That was something I was curious about, Preston. I wondered if you had been an experiencer before you got into it, but it turns out your brother was the experiencer.
Yeah, well, it's entirely possible I was, but I had somehow denied it or not remembered or something, because there were a few tiny little things that I look back now and wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And, since you asked, I don't normally talk about this because I'm just not entirely sure about it.
Yeah.
But there was an incident around age 9 or so where I was confused because I had somehow missed lunch. And in effect, with 6 kids, you don't miss lunch.
Right.
I mean, you just don't. And I remember being so upset. Like, how could this happen? And why didn't anybody call me? And where was I?
Right.
I was here, and nobody had any explanation. But, that's vague enough where I can't really pin that down as, seeing a UFO and having missing time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact that you're thinking about it, there's probably something there that could be explored more.
I wonder about it.
Yeah.
Because, I did have a few psychic incidents as a little kid, which kind of goes hand in hand with this.
Right.
Yeah.
But really, it wasn't until 1986, November 17, I heard a report on the news about a sighting over Alaska, which was very tongue-in-cheek, very joking. It turned out to be a great case. It's very well known in this field, JAL Airlines.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But that was what inspired me to go back to my brother Mark, because he had come into the house running. I'd seen a UFO. I was probably 14. He was, 18 maybe, 19.
Wow.
And I didn't believe him. But now years later, I'm 21. And I go back to my brother Mark. I'm like, what did you think you saw? Kind of how I put it. He rolls his eyes a little bit at me. And I'm like, what do you mean think I saw? I saw a UFO. I'm like, well, tell me. And he described this amazing encounter that he had with his 2 friends, Phil and Greg, driving down Reseda Boulevard in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. This is, pretty late at night, 11 p.m.
Right.
And they saw what they first thought was a helicopter, but could see instantly it wasn't, because it was a disc. With a dome, lights on it, quiet, treetop level, 100 feet away.
Wow.
Like, look at that. What is that? So they floor the accelerator and chase after this thing. And it waits for them until they get real close to it. And then it takes off and goes several hundred yards ahead of them and waits for them there. So they're chasing this thing and it's playing with them, and they're passing other cars. They're hanging out the window looking at it, pointing. Like, what is it? We don't know. So there was a number of witnesses to this, not just my brother and his friends. I ended up calling both Phil and Greg, his friends, to confirm what my brother told me, and they did. It was a real honest-to-God sighting. That's when I found out that I had other family members who were from me. My sister-in-laws, 2 of them, and friends. One had missing time, people at work, at least 3 of them there. And 2 of them had very close encounters. One had missing time, and one saw grays face to face.
It's incredibly amazing. I mean, just the people that the people that we know and our experiences, how often this happens. I mean, it's amazing. It can't be denied, Another thing I want to bring up that we really like about you, that you are into the paranormal in all kinds of fields. What I mean is you do the ghost hunting, and you kind of tie the Bigfoot stuff into the UFOs, and I kind of believe that. And you do the UFO stuff. Our team that we work with out of Traverse City, Michigan, we do the same thing. When we go out and investigate, I swear sometimes over our equipment, we have gotten ET communication. And I was curious if you've ever had that happen when you were investigating, let's say, ghost spirits.
Can't say that I have specifically. I absolutely do think these subjects are related, to a certain extent. I don't think they're the same thing by any means.
Right.
But it became clear to me that you can't ignore the evidence. You have to follow it where it takes you.
Yeah.
And I would talk to witnesses, and they were reporting not only UFOs, but poltergeist-like activity, near-death experiences, Bigfoot. That came up, and I was not thrilled about it. I was kind of avoiding the Bigfoot subject. I had a sneaky suspicion there might be something to it, and it would be opening up a can of worms, which of course it was.
Yeah.
Found out very quickly it was real. The evidence is extremely, it's conclusive. I was going to say persuasive, but I'll change that to conclusive.
Yeah.
It is real. If you don't believe it, you haven't done your homework. Same with the UFOs. There's
Exactly.
no doubt. You cannot deny the evidence.
We just started investigating the Bigfoots last year, and our second investigation, we got a response back about 25 miles from here, and it was, the looks on our faces were like, wow. And we've got it on recording, and we played it, and it's just, because I've been out in the woods a lot, when you hear something that's not something you've ever heard before, So it was pretty amazing, and it's calling us back, so we want to do it some more. But why, I don't know, and what are they? I really don't know, but I want to find out.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I started doing ghost research because I wanted to know myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the kind of guy who's, it's all well and interesting to interview someone who said they've seen them, but I want to see them myself. And that's same with UFOs, same with Bigfoot, astral projection, all of it, which I have been able to do largely. I have had my own sightings. I have had ghost experiences.
Right.
Did eventually have a Bigfoot experience as well. So
nice. Nice.
Then you can read all the books you want, but until you have your own personal experience, no one can tell you differently that this is.
That's right.
Yeah.
It changes your life forever, for sure.
Yeah. You definitely go from a believer to a knower.
Yeah, I don't like being called a UFO believer. I'm like, hey, wait a second. Well, yeah, it's true. I do believe in them, but I know.
Yeah.
There's a difference. There's a difference for sure. And, what is your take, Preston, on the whole spiritual evolution happening with all of this? It seems like as the veil thins, so to speak, people are having more UFO sightings, more Bigfoot sightings, more paranormal ghost, all types of things. Do you think that it goes hand in hand with the evolution that we're going through?
To a certain extent, yeah, I do. Having researched ghosts, you can see that accounts go back many thousands of years.
Right.
And for that matter, Bigfoot and UFOs too.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the UFOs, it's clear there was an escalation of activity following the modern age of UFOs. 1947, that summer, there was a huge super wave that was pretty much unprecedented, certainly in modern times.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's another reason for this sort of rise in reports, which is that people are waking up to it. And the skepticism, the debunking, and the cover-up is all weakening, falling apart, going away. So people feel a lot more comfortable now reporting, certainly with UFOs, their sightings. And Bigfoot, if you can look at the research of UFOs, it was a uphill battle for researchers to get this information out. And even within the UFO field, there were investigators who wouldn't look into humanoid reports.
Yeah.
They would not accept anything that was just anything more than a simple sighting, which is where our governments are at now. They're not talking about humanoids.
Right.
God, no. They'll talk about lights in the sky.
Right.
But you will not hear them discussing UFOs that land or leave landing traces, or onboard experiences or face-to-face encounters of any kind.
Mhm.
But it's certainly the information age now, so to
Yeah.
speak. You cannot hide this information. You just
Right.
can't.
And there are people that are talking about it that know, I believe. And, I one thing about you, I know you keep on top of just about everything that's going on in the UFO communities and the paranormal community. But so, I don't mean to bounce around here, but I want to ask you something. Do you, how do you feel about and if, I know our audience may not know about this, a lot of them, but they may, the Solar Warden program or the 20 and back secret space program. How do you feel about that?
I am not a fan. I'll put
Okay.
it that way. I've interviewed a lot of people. Yes, I have not had anyone report this to me.
Right.
I've certainly followed it, and what I see in it is some blatant, what I would call scientific impossibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some things that these people are reporting simply can't happen. It goes against basic science.
Right.
20 and back? No. You cannot do that. And even within the advanced ET technology, I've not heard anything remotely like that. Super soldiers on Mars? No, science absolutely refutes that conclusively. Because Mars has no magnetic field. You cannot live there, period.
Right.
So there's some things about all this I'm like, I don't think so.
Right.
So
I don't get to talk about it with a lot of people around this area, so I was just wondering how you felt about it. There's, I'm definitely on the fence about that myself. I don't.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see Corey Good, what's going on with him right now, because he was a major proponent of this, and apparently now he's being accused of fictionalizing it all.
Yeah.
I always wondered about his case. Keep these on the back burner because I'm like, well, I don't know about these. And a lot of we know there's disinformation in this field.
Right.
Purposeful misinformation. Purposeful. It's part of the cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The cabal, if you will, or the one percenters, the folks behind the cover-up. We kind of know who they are, but it's clear that they're spending an enormous amount of time, money, and energy and have a very much concerted campaign to muddy the waters as much as they can.
Yeah.
And put forth a false ET threat narrative and just put out all this just garbage.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
That scares the hell out of me that, if they do a false flag thing in the skies, and because, a lot of people aren't going to be privy to, that's going on. And it's going to cause a lot of havoc. It just really makes me nervous.
Yeah, well, here's what I'm hoping. If that does happen, and I think it probably will, that certainly is the buzz, and there's a lot of indications that this is what we're moving towards. It's going to wake a lot of people up to this subject, and they will hopefully do their research and look. And if anyone can think objectively at all, you can see that this ETs aren't here to take over.
Right.
Absolutely.
And in fact, the whole ET contact experience is pretty badly misrepresented in the media often as very fear-based.
Right.
But I came around right away when I got in this field. It took me about a year of study to say, oh my gosh, this is not bad. People are being healed. That was the subject of my first book. And it's a very much positive. I will admit it can be very frightening for people because we are very fear-based anyway.
Right.
But if you look objectively at what happens when someone is taken on board, it is kind of scary to be physically examined by grays. No doubt about it. But they're healing people. That is certainly not nefarious.
Right.
They will give you a tour of the craft. That happens regularly. They'll take you up to the observation deck, show you the engine room, take you to the control room, like sit down in the seat. Here's how you fly the craft. I'll point to my latest book, one of my recent books, Symmetry, with Dolly Safran. They taught her how to fly the craft. This is basically what the book is about. She's what I call a fully awake, fully conscious contactee. She does not need hypnosis, as a lot of people do.
Right.
So she really kind of connected the dots for me and confirmed what I already knew. That this is really good news for us, that we have people out there who are us. We are them. We share the same heritage. We shouldn't be calling them aliens because they are not that far removed from us.
Right.
They are brothers and sisters, honestly.
Yeah.
They're our ancestors. We're the same. That's the message that all the contactees are getting. We are you, you are us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all one. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about you, Preston, is you're putting that out there and you're helping to eliminate the fear. With all of the false information that's out there, the fear has really taken over. But when people like you and Dolly speak out about truth and what really is happening, that helps to eliminate the fear. And I think it helps to bring unity among the beings, all of us.
So, the
bless
fear is
you.
coming from us. It really is.
Oh,
When someone has grays come into the room, or an ET, right? The first thing they will say, and you can see this in every single account out there, they will say, "Don't be afraid. Have no fear. No harm will come to you. Everything's fine. Stay calm. We are not here to hurt you."
Right.
They always say this because they know that we have a very strong fear response. It's coming from us,
right?
Not them. And that's important to know, because talking to a lot of people who said, "Well, I have negative experience," I'll sit down with them. I'm like, "Okay, let's go over your experience. What happened to you?" And they describe how it is very scary, and how they feel a loss of control sometimes. But what I don't get is what we see here on Earth, which is so awful. The crime, the corruption, the sadism, eating up, the war, the genocide, the sadism, the awful way we treat each other. That just doesn't happen.
Right.
I don't have any accounts of sadistic behavior or ETs going, "I want to hurt you." No.
Right. Yep, I agreed 1000% with that.
Yeah.
And it is human nature to be afraid of what we don't understand.
Yeah, we fear the unknown.
Ignorance breeds fear. How many times have we investigated for paranormal? Someone, haunted house, and they're terrified and they're convinced they have demons. And, sometimes it turns out to be grandpa or mom.
Yep. Exactly.
But they don't know who it is. All they know is there are things happening that they can't see and they can't explain. So they're terrified. So I think it's the same way with ETs. We don't know them yet.
That's exactly right. I think this is why it can start out so scary.
Yeah.
And I see this all the time. Often, generally as a rule, contact starts at a very young age. So we have 3, 4, 5-year-olds encountering grays. And some of them do have a fear response, but often not, because kids are very open-minded and don't know when something is different, because everything is different and new to them.
Right.
And then their teenage years roll around, and that's when the fear starts to creep in.
They're conditioned. Yeah.
But then the encounters continue into the 20s and 30s, and this is when they start to wake up. Like, well, gosh, I'm still here. And now I'm having all these psychic experiences. And look, I've got the ability to do healing.
Yeah.
And I know this came from my encounters because they taught me, which is another. This is how we know, I think, that the ET agenda is very much positive. I don't really like that word agenda because it's got a negative connotation. I'll say mission.
Mission, yeah.
Because people who are taken on board are not only healed, but when they get any communication, it's very much along the lines. It's over and over again. And this is true from the 1950s onward, whether you're talking about the contactee era or little grays or praying mantis or the human-looking ones or the tall whites or little blue beings, because there's all these different types. But they always say, if you're not freaking out and saying, go away, at which point they will paralyze you and perhaps allow you to not remember right?
Maybe
You'll
for
have-
your own good. Yeah. I mean,
But if you're fine, if
Yeah.
you're able to communicate and not absolutely lose your mind in fear, they will talk to you and they will give you these messages.
Yeah.
Warnings about nuclear proliferation. Why do you have missile sites all over the planet? We can shut these down if we want. You are on the verge of destroying your planet.
Right.
They're very much concerned about our use of nuclear materials.
Yes.
They've told many contactees, when you explode nuclear bombs, it damages areas you're not even aware of, other dimensions.
Right.
So, and it goes way beyond that. They warn people of pollution. We saw that in the Rua, Zimbabwe, Ariel school landings. I thought, here we go again, because this is the message the adults get as well. So that's positive. They're warning about wars, the dangers of wars and aggression and corruption and environmental destruction and all of this. That's very positive. They're saying, listen, we're trying to help you.
Right.
And it goes so far beyond that, because and this is really unfortunate and sort of, I don't even know how to say this, irks me, I guess. It's annoying, because there are nuts and bolters out there who don't want to hear about the spiritual aspects of encounters.
Right.
And that was especially true. And I kind of get it earlier on, when people are just trying to prove this phenomenon, don't want to talk about, the levitation and telepathy and precognition. But this is part of it. This is why, I think it's so important to research the paranormal, because people who have contact, as a rule, are woken up spiritually, psychically. I have yet to meet a contactee that doesn't tell me something like, well, after my contacts, I started having astral projection. Or, did you know I'm a medium? I physically levitated following my encounter. I've got about 20 cases, physical human levitation, as a result of this sort of being psychically woken up.
Right.
So this is a huge part of the contact experience. And again, shows, by their fruits you shall know them. They are here to help us. Their agenda is to guide, heal, teach, wake us up. They're not going to come down and solve all our problems, unfortunately. People have asked. And they explain, no, there are karmic laws. We can't do that. We will help those who are helping others, but it's up to you to solve your own problems. As every parent knows, you can't tie your children's shoes until they're an adult. They have to learn how to do it.
Right. And we have to clean up our own messes. We really do. And we've made some pretty big messes.
Yeah. I commented last night on the show that, knowledge is freedom. And of course, the 1% do not want us to wake up, because this is their whole gig. This is their whole greedy substance of, product and selling and being in control, but there's technology just waiting, I believe, for us, in the medical fields, in the energy fields, in the you name it, it's there. But would they want it here? Because, if everything's free, they don't have their money anymore, because free energy, free medical. And that is one problem, though. We have to make humans understand that when this technology comes, you'll have to find something else to do. You'll have to, that security is going to be, that false security that they have, that I've got money, a job, and all this, is going to be threatened. So that's something they have to work out too, because people in the energy fields, energy like consumers, everything, they won't need people like that, because you'll have devices that run your house, run the cities, and the food. I think they have a replicator now that I've read. Nobody has to go hungry anymore. But think of all the people that are in the food business. They won't be needed anymore, and you won't have to kill an animal to get a steak.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, RJ.
Yeah,
because I'd like to just elaborate on that a little bit. Let's talk about the medical stuff. Pharmaceutical industry. How much money do they make per year?
More than anybody.
Billions of profit. Illness has become a business.
Yep.
And having written, 2 books now on healing cases. My latest one was The Healing Power of UFOs, which documented 300 cases of people healed from all over the
Amazing
world.
book.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so proud of that one because it pretty much cements into, I mean, you cannot deny that this is part of the contact experience.
Right.
Every major investigator out there, almost without exception, has cases like these. David Jacobs, who's very negative viewpoint towards this, has many healing cases. So does John Mack, Bud Hopkins, all of them, Tim Beckley, Philip Mantle, Michael Hesseman, Barbara Lamb, Yvonne Smith. I can go on. Edith Fiore, PhD. All of them have these healing cases. And some of the whistleblowers, this is so interesting to me because, these craft have crashed. They're not perfect. They fly on our very chaotic magnetic field lines, which, aren't particularly stable right now.
Right.
And for that reason, we do see a lot of UFO crashes. That and the fact that there is an enormous amount of UFO activity out there.
Yeah.
So this does happen. It's not just Roswell. It's not just the Aztec crash or Paradise Valley or Kecksburg or
it's all over the planet. Yep.
So we're looking at hundreds of these craft in military custody. I'll call it military for to simplify it a little bit because it's not entirely just military. But they have this technology, and they have, if you look at the onboard healing or the onboard accounts, it's very much a medical theme often because they are that is one of their primary agendas. So they have this amazing healing technology, and there are several whistleblowers who have talked about how some of this, not all, because it's very hard to farm this technology, which is so beyond our own.
Right.
But they have some of this technology to stitch wounds, just like we see in Star Trek, or detect tumors, is how one guy described this sort of jewel-looking device which slides over your body and projects a hologram or holograph of any tumor that's in the body. Can you imagine if that technology was used widespread? Unfortunately, we have a tendency to abuse technology.
Right.
So this could lead to bigger problems for us. And I think the ETs know this and why one of the reasons they don't hand it over. But this goes right to what you were saying, RJ, about energy. The oil industry, how much did they make in profit? This is well known. Last year, it was billions. Billions with a B.
Yes.
Profit. So this is absurd.
Multi-billion.
I mean, and a job isn't security. A job is another form of slavery.
Right.
Wage slaves. I mean, that's a real thing. We're not meant to live this way. We're meant to live in freedom. There's enough food for everybody. We don't need to work all our lives. We should, we could work a couple hours a day, and that should be enough.
It's something you like to do,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of brainwashing going on and a lot of oppression and a lot of very deliberate efforts to dumb people down and keep them afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the ET threat here.
Yeah.
It's to the cabal. It's to their power structure, their enslavement over all of humanity, to their withholding all the wealth. How much wealth does the 1% have? 99%.
Yes.
None of this is sustainable. It's just not. So there's going to be some real repercussions to this at some point.
Yeah, I know. I'm not laughing because it's funny, but I'm just it's
hitting
just
the nail on the head.
Yeah, because when people do wake up and find out the truth, and they are going to find out, it's going to be pretty mind blowing to a lot of people. So, but it has to happen. We deserve to know, and we deserve to be, we deserve to evolve. That's what we're here for. We're to evolve, to be all we can be, and use technology, like you said, right, and don't put it towards things that are weapons or anything like that. So
Yeah, I came into this UFO field so naive. I thought, oh wow, this is interesting. Look, ETs. And when I sat down with my sister-in-law, she started describing seeing grays in front of Stagg Street Elementary School while taking a walk late at night.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, if she starts describing these large heads and pale skin and big eyes and jumpsuits, which of course she did, I'm going to lose my mind. I was predicting what she was going to say. I'm like, okay, this is real. That was to me the aha moment. And when I realized that there is a government cover-up, this is not speculation at all. This is easily provable from documents released through the Freedom of Information Act. I realized, oh my gosh, this is not just interesting. This is a really crucial, important subject that people have lost their lives over.
Right.
That's why it's become such a compelling thing for me. I was so unhappy when I found out this was real, not because, oh my gosh, there's ETs, but because no one told me. This had been covered up. This is not being taught in schools, and it should be. Absolutely. Right. All the history books need to be completely rewritten.
I agree 1,000%.
You know what? None of it's really true. I mean, it's their own narrative. It's what they want us to believe.
Yeah.
And and a lot of it's just about wars. This war and that war and this war and this war and this time and.
Can you imagine what the ETs think of us?
Yeah.
Can you just even imagine?
Right.
They have to shake their heads a lot.
I mean, there's got to be some kind of rule that they just can't, step in and change this for us. But I get that. But
yeah, well, people have asked about that, and they have. Let's face it, they are stepping in. People are being taken on board.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you track the history of UFOs on this planet, you'll see that it goes back to ancient times, no doubt. And indications of really open direct contact when, say, Egyptian times, right? Because you can see this in the hieroglyphs and the ancient writings of India, the Vimyanas flying around. And
India
especially. That, there wasn't really any direct open contact. We don't have indications of that.
Right.
But we know they're around because we've got Middle Age wood carvings.
Yeah.
The Romans called them flying shields. They didn't know what exactly they were. But it went up through the Middle Ages up to the 1800s. They're talking about them. 1920s, Sweden had a wave of ghost rockets. They're like, what are these? There was the airship wave of the 1800s, 1900s. And it wasn't until the modern age of UFOs when these things came down in really large numbers. 1947.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not the only researcher to remark upon the fact that this coincides exactly with the atomic age.
Right.
So it's pretty clear what's happening here. As soon as we reached the ability to completely annihilate ourselves and our planet,
and other things outside of the planet,
ET's like, that's it. Yeah. We have to ramp up our program of education and waking people up.
Right.
The kids are playing with dynamite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like a parent will step in at some point if you're going to walk right off the cliff.
Yeah.
But they're not going to catch you every single time. You have to sort of touch the stove and burn yourself.
Right.
Then you'll know. Mm-hmm. I'll point to one case which I thought was very revealing, which was a couple from Hawaii, William Shellhart and his wife Rose. Were a couple who live in Hawaii. She's an herbal healer, and he's a social worker. Earlier, of course, he was a postal worker and a Navy guy.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, they have a history of encounters. And one time we're driving through Sedona, Arizona on vacation, and they're like, wow, this UFO is following us. And then it went in front of their car and made them follow it because the road, it's right. They had no choice. And this thing, we're driving by and it's hovering over the field next to them. And then it goes bam into the ground. And they thought it disappeared. And then they get to their hotel room and they're like, it's 2 hours later than it should be. That's weird. And after kind of realizing exactly what happened, they decided to see a hypnotherapist and go under regression. And the husband couldn't really recall much. He was too nervous and just wasn't a good subject, but she was. And she said, well, here's what happened. We saw this thing go into the ground. Well, it didn't go into the ground. It landed, a door opened, and a figure stood in the doorway and waved at them. I'm like, oh. She says, we weren't abducted. We were invited on board. So I don't really use that word abducted anymore. I don't think it's accurate.
Right.
Dolly Saffron, her skin crawls when people use it. She's like, no, it's not true. So they were invited on board. Very much human-looking ETs. I would probably call them hybrids.
Right.
They did have bald heads and large eyes and pale skin, but Rose, they could have passed for human. And they healed him at some point of carpal tunnel syndrome and a bad knee.
Oh, nice.
And she's like, well, why don't you just come down and help us? You could do a much better job than our own governments. And they said, we cannot do that. This violates karmic laws. We can only help you to a limited extent. We are helping those who help others, is what they said.
Or those who help themselves.
Right. And this I've heard from other people. I mean, this comes up in the healing cases. One lady had a car accident in Georgia, and she was annihilated. And basically, the ETs told her, you perished. You died in this accident, and you weren't supposed to. And they healed her of most of these injuries, but said, we can't heal all of them. And she's like, why? And they said, well, some of these are karmic. There are things that you did to cause this accident.
Right.
You chose this.
Right.
As we all choose our life and our situations and our challenges.
Yes.
On a very high spiritual level, everything that happens to us is chosen. So people say, oh, I did not choose contact with ETs. Well, yes, you did. You chose to come down to Earth. You chose your entire life path.
Right.
Not to say that there aren't accidents and variations and stuff like this, because I think probably there are. That's a lot of deep philosophy to go into. But they told her, no, we can't heal every injury. And in my healing book, the 300 cases, that comes up. Not a whole lot, because a lot of people don't have the wherewithal to get that information.
Right.
It does come up multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that'll be a big step that everybody can understand that they're responsible for their existence, and they've made these choices for a reason, and just live with it. That's who you are and what you do, but some people just can't believe that. I wouldn't choose to do this. I wouldn't do that, or
that's probably the most controversial aspect of UFO contact.
Yeah.
Because people will tell me, I did not choose this and I don't like it.
Right.
And I fully understand that. But we as human beings have compartmentalized our consciousness to a degree that we almost have walking amnesia. I mean, we seriously do. Because what will happen to contactees, and I see this over and over again, they'll have 3, 4, 5 onboard experiences. And that's when they're like, oh my gosh. They have access to their, we call it the subconscious, probably a misnomer.
Right.
It's part of who we are, and you can break down those walls. And this is when they start having telepathic communication and understanding of all of this. And they realize, I did choose this. I chose to be part of this, lesson. I chose to aid the ETs with genetic material, hybrid babies, awakening of humanity. I just recently profiled a case in Arizona where the ETs took her on board and they said, we just need to remind you that you promised to spread the word about us and you're not doing it. So this is something I see all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
People really need to step back and take a close look at what is happening here.
Yeah. I wonder, Preston, if part of the gig coming into a third dimensional world is that
question.
You have to forget, because you have such an advantage over people. As you're living, you start to remember, and you start to wake up. Hey, I know why I'm here now, and blah blah blah. But At the beginning, I think they erased that stuff because you would have such an advantage over people if you were aware of that right off the bat, But not that some people aren't, but
Yeah, there's certain lessons you can't learn if you come here with full knowledge of every
Right.
lifetime you've ever had.
Right. And I want to talk to you about some regression work, but I want to, do you want to address this, Preston, from
Yeah.
Michael Kennedy?
Yeah. Hi, Michael. I know who Michael is. Thanks for listening. That's awesome. Yeah, Max wants to know what I know of Foo Fighters. This is one of the early manifestations of the UFO phenomenon. I'll put it that way, because there's some controversy over what exactly these things were.
Right.
It was during World War II, I believe, where fighter pilots started seeing these little balls of light surrounding their plane. And both sides thought, well, this is the other side, and they've developed some secret weapon, and that's what's going on here. And it sort of disappeared. Well, that's the way people look at it as time went on. But I think probably what we're looking at, I can't say I'm an expert on Foo Fighters. Let me just underline that. I certainly know about the reports. It's possible some of these were a technology that was developed here on Earth, but I don't think so. I think these were probably ET probes, that sort of thing, because we do see those in modern day times. I mean, I had my own experience with a glowing orb.
I did too, yeah.
Which came down, and I did have missing time. I really did.
Right.
So perhaps that's what they were. It's hard to say because this was in a time of history which was very chaotic. A lot of stuff was going on that was very distracting. I mean, it was wartime. So, and there weren't a whole lot of reports where we could pin down and say, we know what this is. Because at that time, the UFO field was brand new in terms of being studied.
And they weren't going to tell you anyway.
I mean, UFOs weren't studied really at all until the 1950s. They came in large numbers in 47 and 48. The government knew at that point. They knew from the 40s at least, probably earlier.
Yeah.
What this was, because they had craft come down. The Cape Girardeau craft came down, I think it was 41 or something, very close to the Battle of LA, which apparently another craft was downed. So they knew very early on what was going on here.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you real quick. In fact, this is something I wanted to ask you last night when you were on The Outer Realm. You were talking about past life regression. And that's something that, I've been regressing people for close to 40 years. What is your take on past lives and even future lives? Because we're now doing progression work. Oftentimes not being on this planet.
Yeah, well, past lives are real. In a nutshell, there's no doubt the work of Ian Stevenson has pretty much proven this. I would suggest anyone who's interested in past lives to look up his stuff, because he's a scientist who pinned it down. I mean, he really did. And you will see among contactees, often they do have memories of past lives. A lot of people do. There's been studies of children in past lives, which is compelling.
Right.
And yes, you can recall past lives through hypnotic regression. That's how Barbara Lamb got involved in this field, and a few others as well. And it's very healing. In fact, people have been healed of physical illness by recalling past lives because we carry over trauma. And there are some theories that past lives is a misnomer and that all of this is simultaneously going on at once, which is an interesting idea. I don't know. I feel like there is a present moment. There is a past and a future. But as you go progressively higher into the astral planes, and you can experience this yourself with astral projection, time is a different experience. It's very sequential and very locked in here. Whereas on the higher planes, you can see the past. You can, to a certain extent, see the future. But absolutely, past lives are real phenomena. You can see it in other people. You can see it in yourself. A way to pin down your own past lives is look at your phobias. Look at what you like and dislike.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Look at the deja vu experiences you have.
Mm-hmm.
Look at your talents. Some people have a remarkable talent for art or mathematics or music.
Right.
They 2 years old, they're playing the piano like a virtuoso. Past lives absolutely are real and can be accessed through meditation, dreams, astral projection,
Yes.
and hypnosis, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And, you know, that's another thing that I think so many people are drawn to you, Preston, because you are so open, not only with ETs and UFOs and ghosts,
Paranormal.
but spirituality and the collective consciousness. And you're openly talking about things that people wonder about. And the world really needs you right now. So
I need you too.
That's
and one more
word
thing
you're
about past lives, I just want to say real quick is a lot of contactees were told, "Oh, you were us. You were one of us in a past life."
Right.
ET past lives are part and parcel of this.
Mhm.
We don't just manifest on Earth. We can go anywhere we want in this
Right.
third dimensional universe, and eventually to higher planes.
Mhm. Yeah. And that I was curious about that as well, because I definitely feel that way. And, you know, so many people, even young, and I remember being young, looking to the sky thinking, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I don't fit here. So, you know, and I know I've had past lives on other planets. Do I totally recall them? No. Even though I do the work, I don't do real well at getting all of my own information yet because I'm so busy with everything else. But, you know, I think that it would benefit everybody to delve into past life regression, any type of regression, meditation, and astral projection. So thank you for being so open about all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely need that information. And we're down to like 1 minute. So can you tell us really quick, Preston, where can we find you? Where can we find your books?
On Amazon or Barnes & Noble, any online retailers, bookstores. I do have a website, which I saw you flash on the screen, PrestonDennett.weebly.com. I have a YouTube channel because I know some people don't have time to read books, though I do have audiobooks as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm putting out all my research on YouTube. I'm not in this for the money or the fame. There's really no money in this field.
No.
If you think you're going to be famous, well, you're going to get a lot more eye rolling than anything.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm on Facebook, other social media platforms, if you can handle some of these social media.
Right. I've left a few recently.
Well, you know, thank you so much for doing what you do, and we really appreciate you coming on our show. Hopefully, we can do this again.
I would love that. Yeah.
So, just thank you so much for being you, and keep up the great work.
And feel free to stick around for a minute. We do have to run. Everybody tune in tomorrow night for our premiere of Voices of Contact at 8:00 p.m. We love you all. Have a beautiful week. And until we meet again, may all of your awakenings be mystical. Good night, everybody.